Over the past 24 hours, the Democrats have attempted to block the forward progress of some of Donald Trump's cabinet nominations, in some cases by boycotting them. And it worked, at least temporarily. And so we're going to go through a couple of those, a couple where they succeeded, a couple where they failed. Democrats boycotted a Senate committee scheduled to take 2 votes yesterday, one on Representative Tom Price, who's up to head the Health and Human Services Committee, or Department, I should say, and the other on Steve Mnuchin, Commerce, and then they blocked a vote on Senator Jeff Sessions, who might, out of the group, be the nominee that is most opposed. I think. It's hard to say. He would become the new Attorney General, and so they had blocked all of those, but it only lasted less than a day, unfortunately. Republicans on Wednesday morning suspended the rules, damn the rules, and voted to approve them, even though Democrats on the committee were not present. That is for Price and Mnuchin. And so those two have moved out of the committees and will go to the Senate for a full vote. So far as I have seen, there is not the necessary crossover of Republicans willing to vote against these nominees to stop them when it goes to the full Senate. And so we will probably have those votes soon, and they will probably be confirmed.
Right.
Yeah. And it's terrible because in the case of Price, this is a guy who has repeatedly used his position in the government to personally enrich himself, buying stocks with insider information. They had to pass an act called the Stock Act, partially because of him, to stop this from happening. He continued to do it afterward, lied during his confirmation hearings about special price discounts he had gotten on pharmaceutical stocks. But despite that, he's going to be out there affecting those stock prices to some extent in his position as the head of the Health and Human Services Committee.
And also that level of deception was clear in the testimony given by Steve Mnuchin. Consider the fact that he continuously lies about the fact that the financial institutions that he was involved in were engaging in the robo-signing. That was, of course, controversial, unlawful. And he just lies about it. He gets asked about it, he lies about it. And so that's the reason why Democrats wanted to boycott his vote. Look, again, these individuals are the antithesis of draining the swamp or ending government corruption. These are individuals who have benefited, exploited government corruption to the highest extent. And we're going to see more of that, moving forward. Rex Tillerson, former CEO of ExxonMobil.
We're going to get to him, don't worry.
Okay. So
you'll have time to Mnuchin if you want. And so they've moved forward. And also, so you went through a couple of the Mnuchin little lies and deceptions that he went through, but also he just happened to have forgotten about $700 million of his personal wealth on his financial disclosure forms. Weird. Sometimes it falls in between the cracks in the cushions.
Don't you hate it when that happens? When you forget about that $700 million?
And it's like you need to order something and you don't have the money on you. But they will move forward, and apparently no Republicans have any problem. Now, it might be that if those rules hadn't been evaded and there had been a vote inside of the committee, some Democrats probably would have supported them. Now we'll never know, though. So the Democrats have avoided the opportunity to either show their true colors in a good or a bad way in that case. Now, in the case of Sessions, the Senate Judiciary Committee voted to confirm Senator Jeff Sessions, or basically moved him to the next step favorably. As Trump's Attorney General, it will go to the full Senate for a vote. Now, the vote inside of the committee was 11-9 along strict party lines, which means that, yes, all 9 Democrats on that committee did vote against Senator Jeff Sessions. That's the vote that most needed to happen. I think if you vote to confirm him, is there nothing that will stop you at that point? And so thankfully they made the right choice there, all 9 of them. And so they deserve credit for that. But they're moving forward. And even for Sessions, it's weird. We're going to tell you briefly about a nominee that might not make it through the vote in the Senate. But Sessions, I mean, this is a guy who not only has incredibly archaic, antiquated views on civil rights and civil liberties, but combine that with a guy who perhaps more than any other is fiercely loyal to Donald Trump. And when you have a guy who might have to get involved with the repercussions of the immigration ban, voting rights, the investigation into voter fraud that we heard about and then aren't hearing anything more about, weird how that sort of disappeared. This is a guy that cannot be trusted to impartially deal with any of those issues, and he is going to be in a position to do so very soon, unfortunately.
Well, anyone who plans on being impartial will face getting fired by Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump specifically wants people who will work with him, agree with everything he has to say. He wants to be in his own little bubble where he will go unchallenged. So it's unsurprising to me that Sessions is someone who's going to just support him and everything he has to say.
Yeah.
And it's worrying because, you know, through these Senate hearings, the thing that should stand out to Americans the most is, you know, the same checks and balances that we rely on to keep certain branches of government, you know, in check, essentially, are less powerful in this case because of the fact that Republicans have so much more power than Democrats. So, look, Democrats can protest as much as they want. The Republicans are going to get what they want.
For the most part, yeah,
the
in most
most
cases.
part.
Yeah, and look, we've given over the past, it feels like forever, but I guess it's been less than 2 weeks, or about 2.5 weeks, that we've been going through these daily updates and battles over these various nominations. And it started off strong with a number of Democratic senators, and some you wouldn't have expected of, like Tim Kaine asking really hard questions of the nominees. Some Republicans as well, like Marco Rubio, very briefly grew a sack and used it, and then lost it. Sad, really. He was walking home from school and he lost it in a bush. But anyway, they asked hard questions, and then it started to get a little bit muddled. And there were Democrats who were willing to actually oppose, not just in words, but actually in their votes, Cory Booker, actually in their votes to stop these nominees. And we gave them a lot of shit for that. And now, I mean, they're doing what little they can inside of the rules, because unlike the Republicans, they're not willing to totally suspend our democracy. And so they boycotted. They didn't allow the votes to go on, which is incredibly strong. And when you go back, you don't see too many examples of that. In Obama's initial phase of nominees, there were 2 cases where the Republicans briefly boycotted. And that was weird then. Now we have that happening here, but the rules get changed on them. And so to some extent, the Democrats are doing what they can when they're not voting to confirm some people that they shouldn't. But this is why you don't put them in a position where they have to try desperately to stop one of dozens of terrible people from getting into the halls of government. You don't hand the country over to a goddamn fascist and a group of white supremacists, because then they have to stop all of these nominees, and they're not in a position to. They're not in power. They're not in power in the executive, legislative, or soon the judicial branches. This is why you don't win by losing. You lose by losing.
Help us with Operation Watchdog. Help us hire 4 new reporting teams. We could be the watchers on the wall. Make sure we keep Trump and the establishment in check. TYTnetwork.com/go.